evening and welcome to my channel. My name's Becca and today is the 5th of December 2020, which means it's day 5 of Ass, an advent of short stories. Now you may have noticed for the last 4 days I have only read a poem, so I thought I'd better read a short story tonight. And I have picked an old book of mine, which is an Enid Blyton. It's The Greedy Rabbit and Other Stories. The authors I read as a child are very stereotypical. So Beatrix Potter, Enid Blyton, Roald Dahl, A.A. Milne. But there's one story in here I picked for tonight, which is a little bit Christmassy, wintry, and it's called The Shivery Snowman. One cold winter's day, when the snow was very thick on the ground, 2 children ran into the fields by Pixie Hill. "Let's build a snowman," they cried. "It would be such fun. There is plenty of snow." So they built a snowman, not very large, because they really hadn't much time. He had a nice round head, a short thick body, and 2 arms. No legs at all, but just big feet sticking out at the bottom. They put a pair of old raggedy gloves on his hands, and on his head a dirty old hat, which they found in a nearby hedge. They gave him stones down his front for buttons, and 2 black stones for eyes. His nose was a bent twig, and so was his mouth. Really, he looked very fine when they had finished with him, quite real in fact. The children were delighted, and they danced round him, shouting loudly, "We've made a snowman of snow, he diddly he diddly ho. We've made a man of snow, oh ho." Then the boy looked as he watched and found that it was almost dinner time, so off he scurried, the 2 children over the snowy field back to their home. The snowman was left alone. A robin flew down and perched on his hat. "Triller, triller," it said to the snowman. "How do you feel, Mr. Snowman, out here in the snowy field? Are you lonely?" The snowman made a little shivery sound. He wasn't quite sure where his voice grew, but he found it at last. "No, I'm not lonely," he said. "I haven't had time to be yet." "Wait till it gets dark and the birds are gone to bed," sang the robin. "You may be lonely then. I will tell you the little folk who live in Pixie Hill to come and talk to you, if you like. You may be frightened in the dark." The snowman looked all around him with his black stone eyes. It seemed a very nice world to him. He enjoyed himself very much that day. But when the afternoon changed to evening, he didn't like it at all. He couldn't see nothing then, and he couldn't understand it. He began to feel very frightened indeed. Suddenly a little voice spoke near to him, and he saw a tiny lantern. "Good evening, Snowman," said the voice. "The robin told us all about you. We have come to keep you company. Are you lonely?" The snowman blinked in the light of the lantern. He saw a small pixie holding it, and behind him were about 12 others, all dressed in fleecy overcoats, with pointed fur caps on their heads. "Good evening," said the snowman, trying to smile with his bent twig mouth. "Yes, I was feeling a bit lonely and a bit frightened too. It is very pleasant to see you." The pixies sat down in a ring and looked at the snowman kindly. They were good-hearted little creatures, always ready to do anyone a good turn. One of them put out his hand and touched the snowman. Then he gave a scream. "Oh, how cold are you? Poor, poor thing, if I felt as cold as you, I should cry and cry." All the pixies felt the snowman in turn and shrieked in horror to feel how cold he was. The snowman began to feel that he must indeed be cold, and he shivered from head to foot. The pixies saw him and all began talking at once. "What can we do for him? Poor creature! Here he is out in the cold open field with a frosty wind blowing and not even an overcoat on." "We could build a little fence round him of twigs," said one pixie, running to the hedge at once. "And I have an old hot water bottle at home I could lend him," said another, running to Pixie Hill in a trice. "And I could bake him 2 hot potatoes to eat," said a third, and ran off too. The others sat and looked at the snowman, who was now shivering so much that his hat went all crooked. "We will make him a nice little fire to warm himself by," said the other pixies, out of kindness of their hearts. So they set to work to collect dry leaves and sticks, and by the time the other 3 pixies had come back with the little hot water bottle and 2 hot potatoes, they had made a fine crackling fire, round which they all crowded, for it certainly was a very cold night indeed. 2 other pixies had built a splendid fence around the snowman, and the wind did not feel nearly so cold to his back. He was most grateful. It was lovely to be fussed like this. Just then a big white shape swooped out of the night, and the pixies screamed in fright, but it was only a barn owl, coming to see what all the noise was all about. When he saw the snowman and the pixies with their fire and fence and all the rest, he hooted and screeched with laughter. "What's the matter?" cried the pixies crossly. "Matter enough," said the old owl with another screech. "There's such a thing as being too kind, you know. That snowman will be sorry for himself in the morning. Too much kindness is simply foolish." With another loud screech he flew off into the night, leaving the pixies talking angrily about him to one another. "Nasty old thing," said one, trying to make out that we are too kind. "How can kindness ever be foolish?" "Don't listen to him," said the snowman, who was enjoying all the fussing and petting with very much indeed. "Where is that hot water bottle, Pixie?" What a time he had! One pixie popped the hot potatoes into his mouth and he swallowed them down. Another gave him the hot water bottle to hug to his middle with both his gloved hands, and all the rest heaped up the fire and made him as warm as possible. He suddenly began to feel very sleepy. There was a funny feeling in his middle too, where he was holding the nice hot water bottle. He thought he really must nod off and go to sleep just for a few minutes. The pixies went on talking to him. When he didn't answer, they were surprised. "Poor thing, he's gone to sleep," said one, holding up his lantern and seeing that the snowman's head had slid a little forward. "Don't let's disturb him with our chatter. Let's heap up the fire and creep away quietly. He will sleep soundly all night and wake up well and happy tomorrow." So all the pixies crept away, taking their small lanterns with them, and leaving the fire crackling away at the snowman's feet. The snowman tried to wake up, but he couldn't. He really felt very funny indeed. Much too hot, in fact. The barn owl came sweeping by again on his great silent wings and let out a screech of laughter when he saw the old snowman standing all humped up, looking really much smaller now, but the snowman didn't even wake up when the owl screeched. The night passed, the winter sun rose red in the sky. The pixies came running out to say good morning to the snowman, but where, oh where, had he gone? He wasn't there. He simply wasn't there. Only the little twig fence stood where they had built it, and some black ashes lay where the fire had been, hidden in the snow beneath the hot water bottle, but the pixies didn't know it had fallen there. They were very much upset. He's walked off, they cried in dismay. "Oh, how horrid of him! He's taken our hot water bottle too. Would you believe it? After all our kindness, he's quite gone. They kicked down the little fence they had made and stamped on the ashes. They were very angry indeed. Listen, said one pixie suddenly. I can hear children coming. Quick, run! They scampered off, and soon up came the two children who had made the snowman the day before. They had brought spades with them this time and meant to build an even bigger snowman. Where's our snowman that we built? Yesterday, cried the boy in astonishment. He's disappeared, said the girl, looking all around about the field. I know quite well this is where we made him yesterday, John. But how can he have disappeared? Wondered the boy. It's been very cold and frosty. It ought to still be here. Whatever has happened to him? I do so wish we knew. They would have known if they had heard the old barn owl that night screeching to the pixies. What did I tell you? He shouted. Didn't I say that too much kindness was foolish? Well, so it is. You melted that poor wretched snowman till he quite disappeared. He didn't walk away. He melted down to nothing. Ho, ho, ho! What do you think of that? Poor shivering snowman. Well, he had to melt sometime, hadn't he? That was The Shivering Snowman by Enid Blyton. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, join me again tomorrow for day 6 of Ass. Good evening. Goodbye.